Screen Slurps.
Hello and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss everything that is good, that is bad, and that is savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Laura Herlacher.
And I probably sound like I have been screaming for 36 hours straight, but I promise it has only probably been 8 hours straight because Laura and I went and saw my family in Wisconsin, my brother and his wife, and a few other people that he was hanging out with, and we did not stop partying. Isn't that right, Laura?
Yeah, we're both a little rough today. Definitely didn't have a voice this morning. I'm drinking some hot peppermint tea right now, and it's definitely helping. Today was a rough day, but last night was a lot of fun. So we're surviving.
It's true. I mean, it sounds like an advertisement, like, don't stop drinking hot peppermint tea for your throat
It's
sickles.
so good, though.
I said throat sickles, but
I thought you said throat sickness, so I guess my ears are gone also.
I mean, it makes more sense than throat sickles. I mean, I don't know who
Throat sickles sounds like a villain in a Batman movie.
It's me, Throat Sickles. Well, then I'm turning into the people from Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
Anyways, this week we're going to be talking about the Oscar nominated. Well, they're nominated for Best Actor or Best Supporting Actor and Best Actress in the movie, but the movie being the Ricardos and. That's right, being the Ricardos, and I cannot wait to start talking about this because it's a biopic on I Love Lucy, and it doesn't get cooler than that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an arguable statement, but
I mean, we'll talk about it, right? But I Love Lucy is just like such a cultural staple in the US. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
So this movie is like a big thing.
I mean, so many people were just in love with I Love Lucy, and that's not supposed to be a pun or a silly sentence that I was saying there, but laugh all you want, people. I Love Lucy, love and I Love Lucy, all the love goes around, and everybody was watching I Love Lucy when that thing was a television show.
Mm-hmm.
Lucille Ball was a walking statement of a person, and we will talk all about that as we get into the meat and grit of our episode today. But before we get into that, we will be talking about our side slurps. That's right, our side slurps. It's not just a full-blown entree. This is the appetizer, our side slurps. That's right. What is a side slurp, you may ask? Well, the side slurps are the things Laura and I have been doing other than watching this week's Being the Ricardos. It's the things we've been doing, such as watching other TV shows, other movies. Maybe we have been learning how to play a synthesizer, like the one that I'm staring at right in front of my face. I don't know. It's just other things that we've been doing other than watching the main course. Laura, what have you been up to this past week?
That was some good, metaphor, the main course. Your voice also, you've got very much, I know it's because you're tired and your voice is gone, but you've got a little bit of that radio love doctor voice going on.
Hey, the love doctor, or he's not the love doctor, but is he the love doctor?
I don't know.
On the radio?
I can't remember. I think he was called something like that.
I'll be the love doctor.
It's where it's good. It's very good radio voice right now. But anywho, my slurps for this week. So additionally to seeing Adam's family last night and yesterday, my family was then in town the prior weekend, and we got to hang out with them, do some fun stuff. We went to Medieval Times, which is always a blast.
Who doesn't want to be at Medieval Times? You don't want to be watching some knights jousting at each other.
Jousting, sword fighting.
It's pretty great, especially when they get hit into the shield with a freaking jousting stick, and then they fall off the horse about 5 seconds later.
Yeah, it's very theatrical and fake. But I mean, we know it's fake. It's still fun. So Medieval Times. We also went dress shopping for Adam and I's upcoming wedding.
Except me. I did not go
Adam's
dress
not
shopping.
there. He is not going to see the dress till the day of. That's like one of the main traditions that we're keeping for our wedding. But I and my family all saw the dress, and it has been purchased, and I'm very, very excited about it. That's it for family things. The book I've been reading this past week, I actually just finished it the other day. It's called Shady Hollow by Juno Black. And essentially, it's like Twin Peaks meets Fantastic Mr. Fox.
I just love that whole concept already. I don't even need to read the book. And just that statement right there already has me just hooked inside and out.
Yeah, it's a cozy murder mystery. And it's about a town of animals. So very much like Fantastic Mr. Fox, how, you know, they're humanized animals. And it's a town of like a bunch of different animals living together, and someone is found murdered. And then there's the reporter. Her name is like Vivian. She's a fox, and she sets out to try then and solve the murder. It was a lot of fun and like a really cute, cozy read.
Maybe if they make Shady Hollow into a film, we can give Kyle MacLachlan a call and have him be in one of the main roles.
Yes.
I fully support that.
But I feel like they would have to do, I would love if they did it like, maybe it'd be copying too much. I mean, I loved Fantastic Mr. Fox and like the stop motion animation of it, but that probably would be too similar. So maybe we'll have to think of another format for that. And then lastly, I've just been trying to catch up on a few TV shows that I've really been delayed on. So I'm finishing up Cheer, the second season of Cheer on Netflix. And then I was also just watching the most recent part that was released of Disenchantment, which is the show that Abby from Broad City has done with like the creators, I think, of Futurama.
Yes, the creator of The Simpsons.
Oh,
and
The Simpsons.
Futurama.
Okay,
Yeah.
same guy.
Yep.
So watching the newest season of that, unfortunately, I think that show, it was good the first season, the first part. And I think recently it's just kind of gone a little down. So I was watching it just to be done with it and caught up. But
yeah, I don't know. I watched a few episodes of Disenchantment with you, and it certainly seems like a show that I should have caught from the beginning up to where you're at now. But from what I've seen, it does not seem like it's at all at the same level of hilarity that The Simpsons or Futurama would have.
yeah, it's different. You can tell like the styles are similar, so you can tell that it is the same people that made it. But the plot, obviously the plots are different. But even like the humor and things like that is different than those staple classics that, you know, we all know and love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it from my side, Slurps. That's all I got going. What about you, Adam?
Well, Laura, you and I are still in the same realm of constantly turning on the television and watching the classic series Cops in our downtime. And it's no lie that show...
We have been watching a lot of Cops.
They don't make it anymore. They don't make the show Cops
Which I think
anymore
is a
like
good
they
thing,
used to.
though.
And I 100% agree with what you're saying. It is probably for the best that they no longer create the show Cops, because watching the classic episodes, there's some episodes where it's just very surprising to see, as I think to myself, that wow, some people, the things that they're doing, that they're getting arrested for, why do they act that way? Not the cops, the people. Why are people doing these things, such as drug dealing and robbery and house sitting in houses that are not their own?
And it's just funny because they think even when the cop has like pulled them over, they think they're still going to get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own reasons. I understand, but even when they're doing things that are completely wrong, I would assume they should probably know that they're in the wrong. But the cops are asking them, usually very politely when they can, to just explain what they're doing wrong. And then the people that are doing things that are wrong usually are not very polite about it, or they usually run from the cops. They're usually just off thinking if they run away, then that'll be the easy answer to not going to jail, when that just makes it 10 times worse. That just makes the sentencing a million times worse for them. So And Laura and I have watched episodes where when the person who is in the wrong and they understand that they did something wrong does cooperate with the police officer and explain, yes, I did something wrong. I understand. I messed up. Then the cops are usually much more understanding with them. And
I will say, though, there are lots of episodes, though, where you can tell the police sometimes like abuse the power that they have.
Yeah. And I agree with that, too.
And it's kind of unfortunate, too, because, I mean, so many of the things that people are arrested for is like possession of marijuana, which in many parts of the United States now is legal. Yeah. So it's so heartbreaking sometimes seeing people who their life is like ruined and all just because they had some pot. Honestly, it's not a great show. I like it, but we watch it. It's one of those things where it's like a dumpster fire. You just can't look away from. It's a curiosity
concept, really.
Yeah, it's really a study on people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to see that people are getting arrested or jail sentence time for having weed in their car, and the cops are like, well, you got all these drugs here. I think it's one thing when they have a bunch of meth and heroin in their car.
Yeah, but
and all of that. But sometimes it's just like, yep, Jim here had 3 bags of weed in his car, and we're taking him downtown. And it's like, really though? Like all he had was weed.
Things were different back then.
Yeah.
I mean, not even back then. It hasn't been that long since weed's been legalized.
That was like 2006 or something. So
yeah.
Yeah, it has not been very long. I mean, those episodes were probably from around that time. Yeah. But anyways, that was one thing. Some other things I've been doing, working on a movie here in Chicago that I'm doing some sound design and music composition for. It's taken some time, but definitely some hard work into that. And it's a lot of fun, but it's definitely... That's another kind of study that I'm working on, and it's just it's a fun time, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that turns out in the end, and I will definitely keep everyone updated on that. And I'm still playing Elden Ring, and who isn't right now?
Well, I mean, aside from the 2 guys that beat it in under an hour.
That is some baloney that they were able to pull that off. But anyways, as I said, who is not playing Elden Ring? I mean, if you pull up Twitch or the internet in general, you will see a lot of people are posting about Elden Ring. And if you're not playing Elden Ring, then I will say good for you. I mean,
don't play.
You save some time by not investing your entire life into Elden Ring. But if you would like to play Elden Ring, it is a crazy game. It is pretty tricky.
Intense.
It is very intense. You might get stressed. Your character's probably going to die a few times.
You're going to die a lot.
Yeah, you're going to die a lot. And that's how you learn. That's how you start to beat the game. And if you want to beat the game quickly, maybe check out some YouTube walkthroughs and learn some secrets so that you can get through a little quicker. But otherwise, it's a little bit of a struggle. So
I did forget. I just beat Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah,
very excited.
Very
about
different
that.
game.
Very different game. But I did just beat that the other day. So now I have to get the second one that just was released not that long ago.
Yeah. Yep. All these crazy video games coming out right now. All these RPG games, all of these crazy games that take your time and you're investing yourself and you're like, I can beat it in 5 minutes, and 40 hours later and you still haven't beaten it and you're wondering what is going on.
I want a really good new like Stardew Valley-esque game. That's what I'm trying to find right now.
Well, boy, wouldn't that be fun?
There was one that was coming out that was like witch related and I'm very excited for, but I can't remember if it's out or it's like just in beta. I'll have to look that up again.
We'll have to do some investigating. But before we get into that, let's start talking about this week's film, which is Being the Ricardos. That's right. Being the Ricardos. It was released just last year, end of last year, December 10th, 2021. Directed by Aaron Sorkin. Written by Aaron Sorkin. This is a biopic based upon, the making of not the very beginning, but it's kind of a biopic that covers what was going on around the times of the creation and the development of the show I Love Lucy, between Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. The movie stars Nicole Kidman, Javier Bardem, J.K. Simmons, Nina Arianda, Tony Hale, Aaliyah Shawkat, Jake Lucy, Clark Gregg, and many more. And the box office estimate for this movie was $450,000. You can find this film currently streaming on Amazon Prime if you would like to watch it. I highly suggest you take that option. Obviously, going to the movie theaters is also a wonderful option, but if you don't have that option, if you're like, I can't go to the movie theaters, Amazon Prime. It's certainly there. It's a viable option. Check it out. So, talking about the movie, the film summary for this movie, just to give a brief cap on this, in 1952, Hollywood power couple Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz face personal and professional obstacles that threaten their careers, their relationship, and their hit television show. So yeah, Laura, what do you have to say about Being the Ricardos? This movie opens up with just three people from the time, which I think is a fantastic way to start this movie personally. I think it's great that they had some real people.
No, those were actors.
Okay, well, they were back everything that I said.
They were actors depicting, though, real people that worked on the TV show.
And then actors depicting them?
Yeah.
Aaron Sorkin, why are you twisting our minds? Huh?
But the woman, the older woman who was in that opening bit, she actually did work, I think, with Lucille Ball or Desi, one of them. She actually worked on a TV show with them. So she was connected in a way, the actual actress. But yeah, it was three actors playing the older versions of the writers for the I Love Lucy.
Doesn't that just hurt everyone's feelings already?
But yeah, so building on the plot, right? Essentially, this movie looks at 1 week, filming one episode of I Love Lucy, and all of these conflicts and struggles that kind of come up and force Lucy and Desi to save their marriage, save their show, and save everything, really. I was not a big fan of the style of the opening. Like having the three writers older kind of bringing things in and saying, it was a horrible week. It was a scary week. And then going back then to the 50s and actually starting the movie. For me, if it was real, if it was the actual people, I think I would have liked it better. But because it was actors pretending, I was like, are we trying to set this up like some weird unsolved mysteries
Well,
thing
see, I was under the impression that we were
reenactment?
actually going to be having the real people there. And in my mind, that felt kind of nice. I'm like, oh, cool. We have some real people that experience something like this. And I should have been a little more intuitive about that to understand that those weren't the real people. However, you telling me now.
But maybe that's showing then like Sorkin did a good job if you were believing it.
Well, I guess that's what he was going for.
Yeah. I don't know. I just didn't like it. It literally felt like unsolved mysteries when they do the interviews and then it goes to a reenactment. Like that's how I felt.
But again, like I was saying, if they weren't actors depicting the real people, then that's I don't know. I thought it was the real people. So that if that's the idea, if that's the concept, if they were actually the real people, that's the purpose that he's going for, is that you have real people here. That's like a documentary. So
well, he's trying to set it up.
And that's what he's trying to make it look like.
Yeah.
So that's the point, is that you interview real people and then you do a flashback, or you show this is what it was like before, cut away to the footage of what it was like before. However, this movie is not a documentary at all. So I should have known, because this movie is in no way a documentary, that those were actors. However, I did not, like the fool I am.
No, I don't think that's a fool. It just shows that Sorkin knew what he was doing.
I thought he was actually stepping outside, the gate a little bit and actually putting some real people in this. I was thinking, wow, that's actually pretty cool.
Those people in nowadays would be quite old.
Oh, yeah.
Like if they're alive. So
that's why I was surprised. I was like, man, look at these people.
Lucille Ball died in 1990, a while ago.
Yeah.
So those other writers probably,
they would be like,
if they're alive, they are quite old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was just an interesting way to start the movie. It definitely, like you said, it sets it up to seem like it's going to be a documentary. And they do come back later in the film. We see the like older people again, kind of doing like a closing remarks or whatnot.
And I think he does that to try and give the audience a significantly larger sense of believability, that there's so much more realism to this than you would think going into it. Without that, you're just watching a movie.
You want my snarky comment right now? We've kind of talked about this, so I know we're going to have discussions on this episode. But he needed that, I guess, to make you think it was more realistic, because Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem are not very believable as Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz.
I mean, I enjoyed Javier Bardem as Desi.
No, I like him. He's a great actor. He did well, but I just feel like he didn't totally encompass, and I didn't get the, it wasn't Desi Arnaz, which no one can be Desi Arnaz. I understand that. But at the same time, there's just something off. I
just didn't particularly enjoy Nicole Kidman as Lucille Ball. It's when you look at pictures of Desi and Lucille Ball, and then you look at Javier Bardem and Nicole Kidman, they're not quite the same at all.
No.
And when you watch I Love Lucy, you're certainly not getting Nicole Kidman vibes from Lucille Ball.
No.
So,
and it's nothing on Nicole Kidman, because she's a wonderful actress and she can be funny. Like, she can be a comedic actress. I think I blame it honestly on Aaron Sorkin. The way that he wrote the character of Lucille Ball, he just made her, like, he didn't allow Nicole Kidman to be funny, because Lucille Ball in the film is just shown as a jealous wife for most, like, and like a bitch, essentially, like, she's very bitchy trying to film this episode because she's like so worried about things. But the way that she is written for this movie, it just comes out as this jealous, angry woman. Like, she's not allowed to be Lucille Ball. And I think that is like why Nicole Kidman just wasn't believable at all to me as Lucille.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to see that. And it's kind of hard to understand what the real getaway is from this movie when they have all of these problems that are introduced throughout the film as it goes along. At the same time, the film explains that it's supposed to be all in 1 week during the creation of this episode, where Ethel and Fred are getting into a fight with one another. That's the basis of the episode that they're creating. And that's happening throughout this week. And all while that's happening, that's all happening in 1 week. But also everything that's happening in a week is Lucy is announcing that she's pregnant, and she's going to end up doing that on television in an episode. And also Desi's got problems going on with Lucy in his own world.
He's having an affair.
He might be having numerous affairs with her, like with multiple women. And he also has a side job with a whole band at some other club that Lucy never goes to, but then maybe she's going to go to one of them, and Lucy's more popular than Desi, but Desi's the producer. And like all these things are going on, it's just like we're seeing all of these different things happening.
That's again another complaint I have about this movie. Like, yes, all those things did happen in real life. There, Lucy and Desi did have to deal with Lucy being called a communist and being pregnant, and actually then being pregnant on television, and Desi having affairs, and Lucille essentially having to like make her own way as a woman in power in the 50s when it was a man's world. So all of these things did happen throughout their career and their lives. But my complaint is just that this movie is 1 week. And so all of these things are happening at one time in 1 week. And I feel like there's just so many conflicts. None of them are actually fleshed out. And so the plot just feels very diluted. I mean, they bring up the communism thing in the very beginning, and then it's essentially forgotten like for the rest of the week until Friday night, right before showtime. They don't give... If they had focused on maybe one or two of the conflicts and really flushed those out, I think it would have been so much better of a movie. Like, can you imagine if they focused on her being pregnant, like, and actually having her character pregnant in live television? That had never happened before. And which is crazy to me because women get pregnant. Like that's what we do. That's how we have children. So the idea that it was like taboo to have a pregnant woman on television at that time is crazy to me. So I feel like if they had focused on that and the politics going on and with like religious communities as well as CBS, like the broadcasting companies and whatnot, I just think that would have been so much stronger of a movie, or even focusing more on the communist aspect of it. Like, I didn't care so much about the Desi affair thing. Like, it happens a lot.
Let him go and hook up with all kinds of women.
It wasn't good. Obviously, he should not have cheated on his wife. But that's like, it happens all the time in movies. You always get that with Hollywood stars. There's always affairs. It's not new. But that being called a communist and like being pregnant on live television are new. Like, we don't have a lot of movies about that.
Well, they had focus on that in the beginning, and she explained that she checked a box that was because her grandfather was a communist or something of that nature, and he cared her. He cared very much about her. He raised her. And so in her support to her grandfather, she saw it on a sheet of paper and she didn't, think twice about it. She was just thinking, like my grandfather, I will check this box in support of him. And that's that. Like,
but that's the problem. Like you said, it was in the beginning. They mentioned it in the beginning of the movie, and then they barely talked about it at all until the very end.
Yeah, I think they had another scene or so where they brought it up where Desi had said that she checked the box as an accident or something, and then they're going to move past it. And she was arguing with him about it, where it's like, no, I didn't check it as an accident. Like, we can't say that. It wasn't like I checked the box as an accident. And then he tried fighting with her about it, where it was like, no, we are going to say that. And then, as you are saying, they hardly even circled around that whole point. It was just like a very minute detail of like, yep, you mentioned that you were a communist, and, life goes on. Even
the pregnancy thing, I feel like that was only like 2 scenes where it's just him and the showrunner fighting. Like, no, she cannot be pregnant on TV. No, she cannot. And then literally
and he's saying like,
scene,
yes, I'm gonna, I can have her pregnant on television. Like, I will write to the producer about it. I can do what I want.
But I'm saying it's literally 2 scenes. It's like them arguing, and then the very next scene, he gets a telegram from the CBS guy that's like, let Desi do whatever he wants.
Yeah, don't F with the Cuban.
They just brought up all these conflicts and like washed them away. I don't know. I just feel like it wasn't fleshed out.
Well, they had so many conflicts. That was the thing.
I know.
It's just that's what the issue was, is that when you have 15 different conflicts happening in the movie, you don't have time to elaborate on one of them. You got to tie every single one of them together. So we got a pregnancy issue going on, a communist problem going on, an affair issue going on.
And then you have the little side things too, like Ethel's character and her like body issues that she was having, and also her conflict with J.K. Simmons' character, who played her husband on the show. There's just so many things, like, and also having a woman writer, it's maybe from Arrested Development, but also having a woman writer, and if she's funny, and her kind of working with the 2 men also. There's just so many little things. None of them like gave spark. I don't know how I want to explain it, but
I think it's one of those things where Aaron Sorkin is not necessarily a bad screenwriter or director for that matter, but the thing is that he put so much into this, and I think as an audience member, you're kind of asking for And not just you, but you and myself and probably many other audience members would be watching this and saying, like, can't we get a little bit more detail on everything? It's like you're putting all of your straws in one basket when really, like, they're all the short straws in one basket and they don't fit in my drink. We need one that's long enough. So
I wonder if it has to do with, I mean, because Sorkin is well known as being the writer for The West Wing, which is a TV series. So he's used to long form, right? He gets hundreds of episodes to have all these kind of plot points. And I wonder if maybe that has something to do with why he tried to put so many things in like 1-2 hour movie.
It could be. And I mean, this is only the second film that he's ever directed.
Yeah, second or third.
Yeah, something of that nature. He writes so many things. He's just a very renowned screenwriter, but he doesn't have a whole lot of experience directing, which, again, like I said, watching this movie, I didn't think it was necessarily horribly directed. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look bad. It's not a bad looking movie. I think it's just with in the writing that I wish there was more detail on a lot of things, because I think after Laura and I had watched this film, it took us watching a documentary that had recently come out by Amy Poehler, directing this documentary that came out after Being the Ricardos has been released, on I Love Lucy, to explain more about Lucy and Desi in significant detail. And what does that really say about a biopic on I Love Lucy? The biopic, Being the Ricardos, is just a fraction of the puzzle. And then watching the documentary, it's telling us, oh, okay, now this is telling us all of the details that we missed, that we didn't even get from the biopic.
Yeah. And I mean, it puts it in better perspective too, on when it happened in their life. You know, like, it just, that's another thing. It just, like, really, she's pregnant and there's an affair and she's a communist, like, all in 1 week, you know. And I think actually seeing the documentary and seeing where that fell in their careers was important to, like, their lives and their production company and everything. I mean,
perhaps should the biopic have been telling us, instead of it's all in 1 week, should it have been written like, this is 1951 and then time goes by, this is now 1953 or 1954 or something, now this is 1957 or something of that nature, because, and then introducing the next child and their family, because the way Being the Ricardos was written, it was written to show us this is Monday, this is Tuesday, this is Wednesday, and then you have this just ridiculous puzzle of flashbacks and current day. And I gotta be honest, I was just lost in seeing, like, what is the flashback, what is the current day, how does it line up, because you really can't tell most of the time how the flashback and the current day are aligned. I couldn't tell, seriously, when like, maybe she's having a flashback or it's current day, but regardless of that, like, there was issues in the flashbacks, there was issues in the current day, but in the current day they were having so many problems with the pregnancy and with the communism and with the affair, and they weren't just having affair problems in current day. I mean, that's got to be a given. So why could we not have elaborated more on what problems were happening between the flashback time and the current day time? And I mean,
and the problem is you also then had, like, a third thing where, like, it was Lucy imagining how the episode would look when they're talking about productions. Right. So you have current time, you have flashbacks, and then you have these, like, dream sequences also. And sometimes they would make, like, the dream sequences were usually black and white. So that helped kind of get your mindset and, like, oh, okay, this is the TV show, like, her imagining things. But I agree with you. At other times, it's just like, where are we going with all of this jumping around? I do think, though, it would have been better if it was not a week. If he did more of like, I mean, what I Love Lucy was on the air for 5 years. What if he had just done a look at like those 5 years and the conflicts that came up during that time? Yeah, the documentary was just, in my opinion, much better. much better. I will say, though, so we've talked already about Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem and like how we felt about them. I will say, though, I feel like the supporting cast was really good. 2 actors who had previously worked together on Arrested Development, which is one of my favorites. It's such a great old comedy show. But so we have Tony Hale and Aaliyah Shawkat. They're both from Arrested Development, and they were playing 2 of the screenwriters. J.K. Simmons as Fred was excellent. Like, he was so funny and witty and just a grumpy old drunk.
Absolutely.
And even the woman that played Vivian Vance, Ethel's character, a real person, she was great too. Like, the supporting cast was very good in this movie.
And I gotta say, if there's anything wonderful that I pulled from this movie, I'm not gonna throw it under the bus that much, but let me just say that the television read that they have in the beginning of this film, I thought that was really cool. If you are someone that is really studying screenwriting and filmmaking and things like that, taking me back to my days when I was in college. But yeah, it's cool to see that they're sitting around like a U shape, going through a table read and going through the script line by line, seeing where they want to make edits, if they want to make edits. And Lucy and Desi are kind of scanning the script. And as you were saying in the beginning, Laura, they really do make Lucy out to be a real bitch in this movie.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's cool to hear that she's kind of making these vocal edits as she reads the script. Like,
I mean, it was her show, so.
Yeah, it's like she hears a line or she reads a line and she's making these comments like, why is this line the way it is? Do we really think that Lucy doesn't know the sound of her husband's own voice in this house? And it's a comment like that where, yeah, you have to be a team player when you're doing a table read like that to make a statement like, guys, come on, do you really think something like that? Why would you write this in the script like this? And they make an edit to the script. They changed the script a little bit, and I think they honestly made the episode better by doing that. And you can go ahead and watch that episode of I Love Lucy. It's one of the most popular episodes of I Love Lucy. It's really cool to see that after watching this biopic, being the Ricardos. Really cool to go and watch that episode of the real show I Love Lucy and see that episode and see how it compares to how Aaron Sorkin showcased it in Being the Ricardos.
Yeah, I will agree with you. I do like the format of as I'm talking crap about this movie, the one thing I do like the format, and like you're saying, they did Monday. We see the table read. We see Lucy like start to get her creative process. You know, Tuesday we see like camera blocking. We see rehearsals on Thursday. You know, like we do get to see a lot of the process of what it took to write a TV show and to produce a TV show. Because, you know, during that week too, the writers are writing, you know, like 9 extra episodes because they film one every week. So I do like that part of the format a lot, that it made it like we got to really see how the show was produced.
Yeah, it's very much like an instructional guide if you're someone who wants to get into television production and creating a show and understanding what they went through in classic times in 1951 or 52 when they were making I Love Lucy, what they were doing during those times to make that show. Because that was every week for Lucille Ball when she was making the show with Desi and a crew. They were doing that every single week of the year for about 9 months every year. So it would be, you know, Monday through Friday every week or something. That would be how it was, a table read and then the camera blocking and shooting in front of a live audience. They were doing all that stuff every single week. So I think it's very interesting to see, wow, that was your life. That's what you did.
Another really good part of this movie too, another credit I will give it, is like costuming and set design. I thought was great. looks like the 50s. You feel like you're there. And then, like you said, if you watch the actual episode afterwards, even comparing just like the set of their house and the costumes that they were wearing, like the costume department did an excellent job of really like recreating those looks from the I Love Lucy TV show.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty much to a T. And I think in terms of the character casting for this, for J.K. Simmons being Fred and
Nina.
Yeah. Nina Arianda playing Ethel. I thought that was just right on for both of those characters, for both of those actors playing those characters. I thought they were just to a T, just right on the money being those characters. So.
No, I agree. Yeah, I was saying the supporting cast is really great. Do you want some fun facts?
I would love some fun facts.
So actually, they're not fun facts this time. They are factual errors.
Uh-oh.
So as we've already said, the biggest factual error is that like all of these things did not happen in 1 week of their lives. That's the biggest thing. But then there's some other things also that happened during the flashbacks and things that they kind of reworked to work for their angle. But it's not true to what happened in Lucille Ball's actual life. So...
Well, fill me in.
Yeah, I'm getting there, baby. So one of the big scenes we see in the flashback is that Lucille Ball had just starred as in her first lead for a feature film for The Big Street. And she was against Henry Fonda as her co-star in that movie. And so it was her first feature film as a lead. And it was like critically successful. Like it was a very successful movie. And right after that comes out, she goes to meet with the president of RKO, which was the studio she was at. And he tells her, like, we're dropping your contract. You're no longer an actress for RKO.
Which I gotta say, that would suck if that honestly happened.
Well, can you imagine? Like and as she says in the movie, her argument, she's like, I just made one of your biggest movies of the year. Like, yeah. Why are you dropping me? You should be putting me in more movies.
Makes absolutely no sense.
And one of the arguments that he had is like, well, you're 39, like you're too old. Or like you're just not as big as like.
That is absurd. That was some absurd times in Hollywood. Can we all just imagine the sexism of the 1950s and before the 1950s and shortly after the 1950s? Mm-hmm. Go on, Laura. Let's continue.
Yeah. Well, the factual errors concerning that scene is like when The Big Street came out, she was only 31. So she was much younger than the 39 that they say in the movie. But then also in real life, RKO didn't drop her. MGM bought out her contract. So MGM was like, hey, Lucille Ball, you're pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, come.
See, that sounds much more accurate.
We're going to buy out your contract so you can come make movies for us. Like, and that's a big difference. Like being dropped by a studio versus being bought by a bigger one. That changes things. I don't get why he would make that big of a change to her history, but
I feel that that's Aaron Sorkin wanting the audience to think that
drama.
Lucille Ball is being jacked by the studio.
Yeah. And then one of the other factual errors, just the other one I'll bring up, is that actually the episode they were filming when the whole Lucy is a communist thing came out is the episode called Girls Go Into Business. So it didn't actually happen during the Ethel and Fred fight episode.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, Lucille Ball certainly seems like a character in a positive way. She certainly seems like she had a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
During the making of that show.
And she was funny.
During I Love Lucy. And I would say she probably used her voice during the making of that show because you have to. I mean, you're the main character. You have to share your ideas.
Well, can you imagine the stress they were under too? I mean, they were like America's favorite couple.
Exactly.
At the peak of its time, I Love Lucy, I think it was like one episode, 71% of the US population watched that episode. And this is before, TiVo. This is before streaming. Like literally people
and they
had
also
to be
said they weren't doing real
it.
Film editing on it either. I think they were just saying that they would film an episode with 3 cameras.
Yeah.
And then they would just go with it
together.
Yeah, just roll with it.
Yeah. At the peak, one episode would have like 44 million people watch it, which was 71% of the population. Can you imagine? Essentially every single person was at home on Monday night in front of their TV watching the newest episode of I Love Lucy. So of course it's a huge cultural icon. And like, of course she was stressed. She has to continuously, week after week, make America laugh. That's a lot of pressure on a woman who's also dealing with being pregnant and her husband cheating on her, you know, and everything else going on in her life.
It would be rough. That would be a lot of stress. It's crazy what you find out by watching a biopic to start that talks about a classic television show, as we learn by watching a biopic on I Love Lucy. And then you just learn more. The more you dig into the show, the more you research I Love Lucy, the more you gain the knowledge, the more you know, man. It's crazy. Like I was just saying, just by watching this biopic, even if there's, the couple factual errors that were in this movie, it is crazy to just see what I Love Lucy was kind of, what production was kind of like.
Yeah. In that realm, though, I think if you didn't grow up watching I Love Lucy, you wouldn't appreciate this movie. I think this movie is for the people that grew up with Lucy and Desi.
But I think even if you didn't grow up watching I Love Lucy, this movie's kind of a faint introduction to what I Love Lucy is. And then if you wanted to learn more, then jump into another movie where it's going to show you significantly more about it, which is where you and I were saying there is a documentary that's out there, Amy Poehler directed.
Lucy and Desi. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Lucy and Desi.
Lucy and Desi. So going off of this, I think it's time we say what some other people are saying about this movie, some other reviews that are out there about Being the Ricardos. And one of the sites that will say what some reviews are, Rotten Tomatoes.
Our favorite.
It's a great review site to see what some other people are saying. So on Rotten Tomatoes, 68% from critics and a 75% from the audience on Being the Ricardos currently. That's not necessarily a bad score. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. It doesn't surprise me. What do you think about that, Laura?
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, I agree with the critics. It's good, but it was not great. I mean, that's why it only has 68. But if you grew up with Lucy and you loved I Love Lucy, like, you would enjoy this. And I think that's why the audience score is higher then. There's there for the nostalgia of it.
Yeah. I mean, you sound like the website. Honestly, that's what Rotten Tomatoes says.
Bam, bam. I should be we have a podcast. I guess I am kind of a movie critic in a sense, but I'll start writing out my reviews. Join Rotten Tomatoes.
You're going to leave me?
No. No. Roger Ebert, the website, also gave this movie 3 stars. And he goes out of 4? I never remember out of 4. I mean, that's not bad. It's like 75%. Mm-hmm. Not bad at all.
Yeah, it's a pretty fair review for this movie. And it's what a 75 is telling me, or a 3 out of 4 is telling me, is that it's not perfect. It's not, the all-star movie that, you'd find out there. I can't find any synonymous word with perfect, but if it's not perfect, it's what I would say would be, it is great. It's got quality to it, but it's not going to be all the way there. Mm-hmm. So
sorry.
No, go ahead.
You off. There was like a really good quote I saw in one of the reviews that I think was funny and kind of encapsulates my thoughts on this movie as well. So I just wanted to read it really quickly. It's from the LA Times. And so just the quote I pulled is, so a story about a trailblazing female performer at the height of her power and during a pregnancy that would quite literally change the TV industry, told by a filmmaker, so Sorkin, with a tendency for portraying ambitious women as neurotic lunatics. No, thank you. And I feel like that's kind of the argument I had, right? Where she just comes across as this crazy, jealous wife. And maybe that is just the way, unfortunately, Sorkin writes women. And that's why Nicole Kidman wasn't able to really do her best and like give Lucy the credit she deserved.
Well, do we see Aaron Sorkin's female characters like that in most of Aaron Sorkin's other work?
I don't even know a lot of Aaron Sorkin's. I mean, I've never really watched The West Wing. I've seen a few episodes here and there. But other than that, I mean, are you a big fan of any of his other stuff, Adam? Do you know any of them?
I'll have to watch The Social Network and get back to you on that.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that he did write that. The Social Network, I mean, it's all focused on the men. There really is no female characters in that movie, like whatsoever, honestly. So, because the whole focus is on like, obviously Mark Zuckerberg, Andrew Garfield's character, and then like Armie Hammer's characters, because he plays two of them, the twins. Like really, there are not a lot of women represented in that movie whatsoever. So yeah. But I believe the LA Times, he must not write women very well.
That's fair. That's a fair quote. So I think with that being said, I think it's time to get into our slurps up or slurps down. That's right. Slurps up or slurps down. What that means is slurps up. We think the movie is great. We think the movie is worth watching, and we think you should definitely check it out. Slurps down means we think this movie is not good. We think this movie is not worth watching, and we think this movie is not something that you should be keeping in your living room DVD collection. Laura, what do you think slurps up or slurps down?
Very strongly slurps down. And I know this may make some people upset because it is like Oscar nominated. But as you can tell from this whole episode, I just did not vibe with this movie. You know, I had issues with the plot and things not being fleshed out. I had issues with, Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem is how they... And like I said, it wasn't on them. It's the way the characters were written by Sorkin. So I guess really my problems are with Aaron Sorkin. So a slurps down. The documentary by Amy Poehler is so much better. Like I would watch that. But I will say, caveat, if you grew up with I Love Lucy, you watched it a lot, you loved it before, in your childhood or whatever point in your life you were watching it, this movie will give you nostalgic high for a little bit. So that would really be my only reason to watch this movie. So slurps down for me. What about you, Adam? I can't tell what you're going to pick. I don't know which way you're going to go.
Listen, for this movie, I have to give this movie a slurps up because from a technical standpoint, if you are learning about creating a film and you're learning about the technical caveats of creating movies and television, and you have an appreciation for cinema, classic television, such as I Love Lucy or any other classic TV show. Maybe you enjoy the Andy Griffith Show, or you like other classic TV from that time, or even the 1960s or something. Shows like that, I think if you do more research on Desi and Lucy, Desi Lou Productions actually produced the Andy Griffith Show. So this movie is a stepping stone for learning about what was just the whole piece of the puzzle of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. And I think that by watching this movie and seeing the performances by the actors and actresses in this movie, and to see all of the costumes and the wonderful set design and things like that you see through creating an episode from the beginning of the week to the end of the week, I think that is really cool. Now, there are the downsides that Laura and I spoke about, where the immense amount of conflicts that go through flashbacks and current times, and Lucille Ball having problems with wondering if Desi is having an affair multiple times, where Desi says he's going on a boat and he's not actually, but we don't know that, and maybe he is or maybe he's not. It's just there's so many different conflicts that pop up in this. The pregnancy, the boat rides that might be happening, and is Lucille Ball a communist, and all of these things just go on and on. But I think the real attraction is just the fact that you're introduced to the characters of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, and Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem are two wonderful actors and actresses that I'm really happy to see are playing parts in this movie, because they are just so extremely talented. That's why they're nominated for Oscars this year. So I am going to give this a slurps up. It's just worth seeing. Even if you watch it once, just check it out.
It's one of the few times that we have opposing opinions on a movie.
Well, it's going to happen from time to time.
It's good that it happens. I feel like that it makes better conversations, discussions.
Well, we're feuding journalists from time to time, even if we are getting married.
We are getting married. I mean, marriage is not all fun. We're going to have differing opinions on things.
Well,
with that
being said, that wraps it up for this episode of Screen Slurps. Be sure to follow us on social media at Screen Slurps on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Ghana, or just about any other podcast streaming service out there. And if you enjoy what you hear, slide on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. It will help us a lot. And if there's any crazy movies you want to hear about, let us know. Leave a comment on one of our social media pages, and trust me when I say we will be sure to talk about it. So, closing out, I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Laura Herlacher.
Slurps up, and we will catch you later.